This is the Ethanol Report, the industry podcast from the Renewable Fuels Association since 2008. I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
Food safety may not be something most people would think ethanol producers have to be concerned with, but it is, since the main co-product of ethanol production is a high-quality feed for livestock. Justin Schultz is the Director of Environment, Health, and Safety for the Renewable Fuels Association, and today we're going to talk about an upcoming food safety training course for ethanol producers. So first of all, Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been in the industry now a little over 16 years. I spent about 14 of those at an ethanol facility in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and Southwest Iowa Renewable Energy. Joined the RFA a little over 2 years ago, and now I oversee a lot of the compliance programs and try to help with rail safety and kind of anything involved in that regulatory compliance space.
All right, well, that's what we're going to be talking about here is a training course that you have coming up next month in South Dakota. And it is about FSMA, which is an acronym, of course, and you could tell us what that means, but it relates to food safety. And so tell us a little bit about this, what this course is coming up.
It's the Preventive Controls Qualified Individual course, and it's rooted in the FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act, otherwise known as FSMA. And we specifically aligned this training with the Preventive Controls for Animal Food rule. It requires ethanol facilities or anyone really that produces distillers grains or co-products to have a food safety plan that's developed, and then it's overseen by a qualified individual. And so while the FDA, they don't necessarily require, mandate formal training, but they do expect that a PCQI, qualified individual, that they have documented knowledge of this rule and then obviously how to implement that rule. And so we think that this training is going to be exactly a tool that they'll be able to have that'll deliver that.
Well, why do ethanol producers have to be concerned about food safety?
Well, I think the biggest, most important aspect of this is that the FDA has implemented the Food Safety Modernization Act. And as part of that program, your distiller grains, your co-products, anything that you're using that's going out the door, there's a kind of the chain of custody, right? So if you're producing a distiller grain that gets fed to a cow, and then that cow gets fed to humans, you want to be able to document kind of the whole chain, from the part at which we take the corn into the facility to the part where we produce the grain and where it gets fed. And so this really prevents ethanol producers from liability. It shows that we're doing our part of this process and making food safe.
Well, as far as distillers grain is concerned, do all ethanol plants, or most of them at least, recover their distiller grain to be used for livestock feed?
Yeah, so I would say not all of them dry the product. So you have like your dry distiller grains, but for the most part, this is a byproduct of ethanol production. And so you have to do, most plants that don't dry it, for example, they sell it as a wet or modified feed. And then if they do dry it, it gets turned into dry distiller grains, the DDGs, and then that gets sent anywhere all over the world for that matter. And so, yeah, I would say just about every ethanol plant, at least to my knowledge, produces this type of co-product.
Well, let's talk about this training course that you have coming up. This is a 2.5-day course. Tell us a little bit about what will be covered in the course.
Yeah, like you said, it's a 2.5-day course. It's in person. We're going to be doing this August 26th to the 28th in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And there's 20 hours of standard training. This training is developed by the Food Safety Preventive Controls Alliance, so the FSPCA. The curriculum, it's recognized by the FDA, and it meets all those requirements for the Preventive Controls Qualified Individual, that PCQI I was talking about. I'm going to be leading that course. I'm the RFA's Director of Environmental Health and Safety, but I'm also certified FSPCA lead instructor. And so I bring years of hands-on experience working not only with ethanol producers, but also, once FSMA became a thing, I oversaw that whole program when I was working at Southwest Iowa Renewable Energy. And so we're going to cover the full scope of responsibilities under, the Preventive Controls Animal Food Rule. We're going to start with how to conduct a proper hazard analysis, how to identify and apply preventive controls, how to establish effective monitoring, the corrective actions that we have to take if something gets off, and then obviously any kind of verification, procedures that fall in line with that. So we hope that, well, we don't hope that, I know that our participants are going to gain a very clear understanding of what a PCQI's role is in managing documentation, how to oversee that implementation of the food safety program, and then obviously how to ensure compliance across the entire operation. The other piece that we're going to offer, and this is kind of in addition to ones we've done in the past, we're going to explore some of those newer focus areas that a lot of the FDA inspectors are starting to put attention on. This includes things like that Foreign Supplier Verification Program, the FSVP. This is pretty new. What that is that requires anytime that ingredients come from outside the United States, it mandates that we apply the same kind of verification processes and same kind of standards to those inputs. And so anyone that imports, say, like an enzyme or nutrients or other processing input, we're going to walk through what that FSVP requires, everywhere from supplier approval, the risk-based verification activities, and then how to maintain those records so that if the FDA shows up and they want to see how this is being handled at your facility, that our facilities can show that they're not only compliant but doing the right things. And then lastly, I'll just say this about it. This training is not just a check the box training and put it on the shelf with your certificate, but I truly hope that our participants are equipped with every bit of knowledge and all the tools that they're going to need to strengthen their plant's feed safety program. And then obviously be prepared for any kind of FDA inspection.
What are the biggest concerns for an ethanol producer when it comes to the quality of their distillers' grains when it comes out? I mean, is there a concern about, like, say, getting corn with aflatoxin in it?
So you have your clean good manufacturing processes in a plant. And anytime that there is a risk that cannot be managed by what we call the CGMP, you develop what's called a preventive control. And so preventive control can cover things like aflatoxin, for example. So if you know that this year is a wet crop and there's a high likelihood that aflatoxin might be present, the preventive control is put in place to essentially mitigate those risks and verify that when the products are sold outside of our facilities, that they meet the minimum standards at least to be a quality feed ingredient. And then from there, it makes sure that removes that liability in one aspect, but at the same time, it's just a quality assurance of that our ethanol producers are doing the right thing.
Well, and I assume that the distillers' grains provides a revenue stream for the ethanol plants also, right? And they want to protect that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every ethanol plant that produces distiller grains or any kind of co-products, they put their name behind it. And so they want to make sure that as we're selling things out to the market, that we're protecting our reputation as a quality feed supplier and a quality company in general.
So would you say then that this course and the information that you offer here is a service for RFA's members?
RFA's been the longstanding leader in helping ethanol producers navigate that intersection between fuel and the feed regulations. We were one of the first to offer that PCQI training, and we tailored that specifically toward the ethanol sector. And so, as things continue to evolve, with the ever seemingly never-ending changes that happen in the regulatory environment, the RFA has been one of those, the organization that's been staying on top of that. The FDA, they've been putting a lot of, I would say, greater emphasis on, the food supply oversight, just kind of like I mentioned with that Foreign Supplier Verification Program. So we think now it's more important than ever that we're ready to go, that we're compliant, but that we're also fully informed.
But as far as the cost for attending the workshop, if your plant is a member of RFA, then it's free, right?
Yeah, so it's if you're a member of the RFA, it's offered at no cost, and we believe that's part of being the value of being an RFA member and kind of what we bring to the table. But it's not just for our members; it's really for our industry as a whole as well. And so if you're not a member of the RFA, we're offering the cost at a competitive rate of $1,000. And so, we found that there's been a high demand for this course. We've seen a bit of turnover in our industry. And so these facilities, not all of them have a PCQI anymore. And so when you think about the regulatory landscape that's just been constantly changing, we know that there's a need for this course. And so we want to stay ahead of the curve and protect that feed supply chain. And so the RFA needs to continue to be the go-to resource for ethanol safety and any kind of compliance training that's out there.
Well, Sioux Falls seems like it's a pretty good central location, but how often do you have these courses?
I think a lot of it's been based on kind of the demand for it. We put one on last year. We did it up in Johnston, Iowa at Iowa Corn. We've done them in other places before. Kelly Davis, my predecessor, I mean, she really put this program together, and she really helped develop a lot of the training that we see here. And she did it in places like Kansas City, places in Minnesota before. So what we do is we try to just assess it on an annual basis. If we feel that there's a good need for it, then we put it on. If not, kind of my intention is to maybe put it on every other year, something like that, just to make sure that we're covering the bases. The thing is that an ethanol facility only needs one PCQI person at their site. So as long as the plant has that, they don't necessarily need to get the training every single year. But I would say after 4 or 5 years or so, it's a good idea to maybe go back through the course again, just simply to catch up on kind of the new emerging topics that are there, as well as just get a little bit of a refresher.
All right, very good. Well, what do people need to do if they are interested in attending?
Well, so we have a website that we've created. We're going to put it out in not only on the RFA's website, ethanolrfa.org. We'll have it listed there, but we also have our weekly roundups that we send out. I'll be sending a direct email to all of our membership with the QR code that they can scan and get registered. Again, if you're a member, it's free, short of obviously the travel cost and hotel. But then if you're not a member, the cost is $1,000, which we feel is a pretty competitive rate overall. So the website's out there. You just have to go to it, register, and you're good to go. And then if there's any questions, I urge folks just to reach out directly to me. They can email me at jschultz@ethanolrfa.org. That way, if they can't get to the website or they can't find the QR code, I can email it directly to them so they can get signed out. But we're pretty excited about this. It's going to be a pretty good training. Last year, I know the students really enjoyed the material. I mean, there's a lot of dry stuff there, but we do our best to make sure that that it's relevant and that it relates exactly to what folks are doing on a daily basis.
Well, if you want to look for it on the ethanolrfa.org website, go to the About tab on the far right and click on Events in the drop-down menu, and you'll find it there. So anything else you want to add, Justin?
Yeah, I'd just say, whether you're just updating your team, maybe you're onboarding new personnel, or maybe you're just trying to understand FSMA in general and how it applies to your facility, I think that this course is a great investment, not only for your operational safety, but also your compliance posture. And so, I'm really proud of our organization, the RFA. We're really proud to offer it again this year. And, we're proud of our ethanol industry's continued leadership when it comes to food safety.
All right, thank you very much, Justin Schultz, Director of Environment, Health, and Safety for the Renewable Fuels Association, talking about the upcoming FSMA Preventative Controls for Animal Food Training course, August 26th through the 28th in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's the Ethanol Report for this time. Thanks for listening.